My presentation is titled Solutions for the simple reason that I'd like to take you through how Brandix built a solutions company starting off as a trader in 1972. Now, a lot of companies in this industry started off from this trading platform and moved on to what I call a tailoring platform. A lot of us don't like to call us really tailors, but that's where our life began. Now, this was, to me, a very easy, natural stage in the evolution. I've been in the industry only for about 15 years, so those who've been in the industry for a long time may not agree with me when I say it was an easy phase, but think about the context. The global industry, the retailers were chasing essentially cheap labor and quota. Quota was restricted, was defined, was restricted, and those who held quota were really the winners. If you didn't execute your orders, you got some form of extension. Now, in this era, most of the companies made a lot of cash, expanded very quickly. We saw the growth of free trade zones, and the industry was really flourishing. The growth rates were substantial. We had over 1,000 entities, 1,000 manufacturing entities in this country. It is the decisions taken by the entrepreneurs in this era that really bifurcated the industry, that really differentiated the industry. There was one group that really made a lot of cash and held on to the cash, really milked the cash and held cash. And there was another group that really made cash in that protected environment and invested into the future. And that was really the turning point in the industry. Brandix's graduation from this tailoring mindset was really investing into joint ventures. And the first joint venture was an investment with the famous godfather of intimate apparel in this country, Marty Trust. And those who know Ashraf would not mistake him from that photograph with that very sharp features of the nose, as we tend to fool around with him most of the time. And this was really a turning point because JVs taught us things we didn't know. JVs brought manufacturing technology into this country. JVs brought market access to this country. JVs brought process capability into this country, into our entrepreneurs. And from there on, Brandix continued its JV sort of evolution through JVs by investing into the supply chain. Now think about this industry. We heard so much of the natural capabilities that we have in cinnamon. This is an industry where we have no cotton, where we have no spinning, where we have no synthetic yarn, no industry to create synthetic yarn, no petroleum industry, for example, to create synthetic yarn. We had a bit of nylon here, there. And therefore, for this industry to really grow, one had to build a supply chain capability in this country. Because at one point, almost every bit of the raw material was imported into this country. And the first was, or one of the first, was an investment, was a joint venture with one of the famous Chinese companies called Fountain Set, and it was a joint venture between Fountain Set, Brandix, and Hydromanis. Another major investment was Texas Jersey with another big Chinese company called Pacific and MAS Holdings. It's also interesting to note how competitors, or so-called competitors, came together to build a capability, to build a supply chain capability, without which none of the big players could have survived. So this industry really has had major competitors who've actually collaborated when it really benefited the industry as a total. And from there onwards, printing capabilities, and then went into India as well. And with this investment, Brandix today has the largest cotton weft knit capability in South Asia. Woven textile dyeing capability, elastics in India, finishing capabilities, hangers, buttons, etc., across the supply chain. And the education of the people. And finally, the next real major phase in the investment was from individual supply chains to investing into a supply chain city. So if you look at the story so far, it's going from being a trader to a tailor to a manufacturer, and in that manufacturing era, doing what the customer asked the manufacturer to do, to really going forward in terms of design and so on and so forth, investing into supply chain and investing into a supply chain city. It is the largest special economic zone focused on textile and apparel in India, in fact the largest in South Asia, built over on a 43 million square feet. Now, when we went to India, we looked at a capability which no one else had, and we had this theme called incomparability, that what we built must be built on the platform that none could compare. We went into this region on the southeast of India, into a little city called Vizag. When I say little, anything in India is big compared to us. It had 4 million people, in the state of Andhra, which had 80 million people. And we went into virgin territory, no industry, no power, absolute jungle land. And I'll show you a few visuals for you to understand how we sort of graduated from that basic jungle land, working with the government, building the infrastructure, to finally building the apparel city. As the visuals show, from building road networks, to building infrastructure, to building factories. And today, built over 1,000 acres, we've still got enough capacity for expansion. And on average, we export over 220 odd million units, and we've also become the largest underwear exporter in India. So if you look at the story so far, as I started off, from a trader to a tailor, to a manufacturer, to a supplier, to a supply chain company, to building a supply chain city. And it was constantly investing, making cash, and investing into the future. And we keep repeating this because that was really the true differentiator in our story of how we continuously invested into the future. Now, once you build a supply chain, the next question is that supply chain sustainable? And that's where the green story comes into play. In about 2008, we set ourselves 3 pledges around the CO2 emissions: air, water, and earth. And it was to state that by 2012, we'll reduce the carbon footprint by 30%, reduce the water footprint by 30%, and zero waste to landfill. By 2012, we've achieved the first 2, but we found that we had a lot to learn in terms of landfill. And it took us a further year and almost a year plus to achieve that target. Now, this then led us in the sustainability journey through better cotton initiatives, through sourcing organic yarn, through greening the supply chain, through greening the manufacturing capability of ours, to making traceability possible, to know that each component, where it is sourced from, and building organic product. So we've got in our fold the world's first LEED Platinum apparel certified manufacturing facility, and a number of other LEED Green certified factories in the fold. We've also awarded the first Marks & Spencer Plan A award globally, the first ISO Energy Management certified apparel plant globally, and the first private sector company in this country to publish a sustainability report. And today, we've built a Composite Eco Index, what we call an Eco Index, that encapsulates all these 3 variables that enable us to compare the carbon footprint from location to location and to measure the carbon footprint in each product. I brought these out not to really exaggerate our story, but to explain the value of each of these investments that we made, that we continuously invested, because we believed that this is where the future was going. Now, once you build the supply chain and you build sustainability in the supply chain, we believe that you've got to make the communities that we work in must be sustainable. We didn't look at CSR in the context of something external, but it really fitted into the business strategy, and we believe that to make the community sustainable around a resource that we continuously use, and that was water, because water was a main ingredient in the manufacturing process. So we start at this water, this just journey called Water is Life, of how much water can we save and how much water can we provide to the communities. It's a journey that's been going on for about 8 years, and we realized about 2 years ago that this is not a journey that we can do alone, and this is where we formed an independent foundation called the Bindu Foundation. We actually took the Brandix name out, and we partner a lot of companies like Coca-Cola, John Keel's, HSBC, IBM, in taking water to the communities, because that then enables us to build sustainable communities. And with this sustainability platform, the next obvious aspect was to deliver sustainable products to the market. So if you look at the story up to now, it's about investing into the future, step by step, moving from trader to tailor to manufacturer to sourcing company to supply chain city to a sustainable supply chain. Now, the next phase in the supply chain equation was how do we optimize the supply chain? And one might ask, why does one have to optimize the supply chain? To produce and to bring to market a concept in clothing used to take more time than bringing a child to the world. We used to take a lot more than 9 months. And it's not just us, but it was across the industry globally. And the bigger part of this was the retailers were getting stuck in the conceptualization part and the design development part of the product. And once the product was developed, was in the sourcing of the product, was getting the product to store. Now, all the solutions that we developed right throughout was based on what we call the pain points of the market. And we're in the fashion segment of the industry, and fashion is fickle. Fashion stays for a week, fashion stays for 2 weeks. Fashion does not stay for 9 months. Fashion does not wait for a new product to come 9 months hence. So it was about how we rationalize the working of the supply chain and how we build speed into the supply chain. And we looked at 3 platforms. One is, once an order is confirmed, how do you deliver it fast? 2, how do you develop the product fast? How do you design and develop a product fast? And for us, that was all supply chain. And the third aspect that really kills speed and kills fashion is in the decision making. Because between a customer that is in New York and a supplier that's in the Far East or in South Asia, the time lag is substantial. So we worked on 3 platforms, and it was built around a concept called instant, which actually came to us through the instant noodle concept. So the first was called instant in store. It was very simple. We said, how long does it really take to deliver a product to store? One would believe that moving a product by boat was more efficient, but if moving a product by boat means you're supplying the wrong fashion into market, it meant that moving a product by air, though costlier, was much more effective, and everybody ended up gaining more money. So this was about instant in store. The second concept was really instant in product development. And all we did was we brought the different parts that went into developing a product, designing and developing a product concept forward in an integrated manner, what we call a product development village. And the third element was really instant in decisions. Now, I'll just show you, without mentioning customers, without mentioning circumstances, the flow of decision making and the number of times a decision moved up and down via mail, via calls around the world. To develop, we did a recent study which showed that to develop and sign off on a single color, the transaction included 160 emails, 166 emails to be precise, to develop one color. So that meant that showed the waste that we had in the decision-making process. And this is where the use of simple technology came into play, and this is where Steve Jobs joined us. I say this jokingly because we developed, for example, a very simple iPad-based solution which enabled the customer, without having to talk to us, to decide what she wants to order, how she can order, and how much time it will take. And in fact, we worked this out in terms of the pricing model as well. We also developed on a similar platform instant in decision-making in terms of design and development. Again, it's the same story where the designers send stuff to us and we develop and it goes up and down. But on a simple virtual tool, from saying, this is my sketch, this is my price point, this is the margin structure that I wish to have, based on hooking that app to the back-end supply chain, it was a very simple decision for the designers to make without having to talk to anybody. It cut almost 45 days of design time. So in essence, the story thus far is how we have taken this supply chain and converted that supply chain, leveraged that supply chain to deliver solutions to our customers. And with that, we're quite proud to say that we've been the largest apparel exporter in the country for 9 of the last 10 years, the second largest exporter in the country in 9 of the last 10 years, and contribute to more than 1% of the GDP. So the story, in a nutshell so far, is about how we've invested forward step after step without really resting on what we've built to move forward. So the question is, what next? We've gone from, as I said, a tailor to a supply chain solutions company. And we believe the next step really lies in the knowledge that we have gained, that we've garnered over time. And in this context, what we're trying to build Brandix is as a knowledge company. And there are 4 major initiatives that we have in play at the moment. The first is what is called, what you see together, Brandix i3 and Info. Info is the world's 3rd largest supplier of enterprise applications and services, and we've tied up with them to build information-based solutions. Accenture needs no introduction, and we've really partnered Accenture, first of all, as a BPO service, moving our shared services to Accenture, and we're trying to build a center of excellence globally on textile and apparel. And the third is something that is really close to my heart, which I passionately believe in. We've called it Disrupt Unlimited, where we're trying to build an incubator cum accelerator, essentially to disrupt our own business model. It's an organization we are building outside of Brandix, connected to Brandix, but outside of Brandix, to really innovate in terms of product, process, materials, etc. Essentially, one could say as a competitor to Brandix, but essentially to disrupt the model so that competition to us comes essentially from within. Now, one of the unique things that one of the things we've believed continuously, that if one wants to invest and move forward, that comes from the leadership and the people. And we've always believed that the people have to be given unique experiences, incomparable experience. You give people incomparable experiences, they end up doing incomparable things. So whilst we have the standard structured training and development, we've always attempted to give people something really unique, taking them to work with the Dabbawalas in Mumbai, taking them to meet the Maasai, taking them, and this is not just executives or managers, but staff and workforce, taking them for whale watching, taking them on air travel around the country, because those are experiences that other workers and other staff members don't have. And it's not just a retention tool, but it's a tool to enable people to think differently and to build different solutions. So I talked a lot about the success stories, but I must say that we've really blundered many a time, from delivery failures to quality failures to missed opportunities to poor investments. But then again, I guess that's the story of an entrepreneurial spirit. And we believe, a lot of people believe that the so-called garment industry is in a sunset mode. We believe that we're really in a virgin land. It's virgin opportunity. And this is why we believe that, we're at the cusp of the next frontier. It's a $4 billion industry built from almost nothing. It's like the ICT industry of Israel. They've got 60-odd companies with a turnover of $4 billion, 60-odd companies listed in the NASDAQ. Ours is an industry, as I said at the start, no cotton, no yarn, no raw material, no really big brands, and one could say small country. But if one looks at it, we are in a region which has the largest population, if you take the South Asian region, has the second largest cotton producing region, the second or the third largest spinning in this region, has the largest labor force. And therefore, the supply and demand could come essentially from this region 10 years hence. I come from an industry that has few global players that compete intensely, but also a few global players that have competed intensely, but have come together when it really mattered to build capability for the industry. If there is one thing that has moved our organization forward, it's really the fear that we will not exist tomorrow. It's really the fear that we will not exist tomorrow, and therefore we have to innovate and move forward. So in simplicity, if you look for a one-liner, it's about investing for the future, and as we move forward, we look at innovating for the future. Thank you very much.